director of the Courtney Medical Group, located at 3075 Washington Road in McMurray, Pennsylvania. For more information or to make an appointment, call 724-942-3002. That's 724-942-3002 for Dennis J. Courtney, MD.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to AM Impact on Your Health. AM Impact on Your Health, where every day our goal is to have you learn at least one thing to help you live better and longer. AM Impact on Your Health, heard each and every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 to 9 o'clock. I'm Dr. Dennis Courtney, and I'm with you each and every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 to 9. AM Impact on Your Health, for each day you'll find current medical news, knowledgeable guests, fascinating health topics, and of course, where we do encourage you to call in to join in. Today, well, here we are in the month of December, and boy, this month is rapidly going by the boards, folks. In fact, we're right at the tail end of the month, and you're probably going to be seeing on your own television these year in review shows. It happens, especially on the news shows. I always enjoy seeing them on sports shows where the commentators take to the airways and they spend that hour or whatever time allotment in reviewing the biggest events to happen in the year 2000 and whatever, this year being 2010. Well, we do the same around here. We've been doing it for a number of years now. We're going to start it today by taking our year in review. I've got my little calendar book in front of me, my little book that I use each and every time I do the show, and I'm going to be taking a walk through all the months of the year 2010. We're going to do part 1 and part 2. Today is part 1, where we take the first half of the year, literally going through my schedule and finding out who were the guests, what dates they were there, what we learned, if there were salient points that I still remember, and I'll pass those on to you. I know many of you do keep, and I'm very flattered when I hear that happen, quite a collection of our shows, and you do follow along closely. Well, today's the day. If you do follow closely, just to check your own notes, and if you normally don't, run and go get a calendar, go get a piece of paper, get a pen, and be ready to take the walk with me as I move down the road. Now, I'm going to have names. I'll have phone numbers. I'll have numbers to call, 800 numbers and so forth that at the time when we did the show were operational. More than likely, they're still operational today if you're triggered to want to make a phone call and grab a book or get a product or whatever it is that happens to be reconjured up during our trip today. You could probably also take some notes and then realize that each and every show that I now talk about is found on the website in the archive section. So at DennisJCourtney.com or AMImpact.com, you'll be able to, on the opening page, click the word archives, and with it be up and running and be able to take the notes from today, your little calendar checkoffs today, and go right to the show that you want to listen to again, if in fact you do. So that's how we do it. We're going to start it today, and we're going to get right on it, right after our first break. Now, looking at then the rest of what I have scheduled for you. Of course, today and Friday are year in review, so that pretty much will take us right on out of here. When we return in January, on the 3rd of January, Cass Ingram's going to be with us, and Cass is going to be talking about his book entitled Natural Cures for High Blood Pressure. I promise you, I'll make him talk about it, and I'm looking forward to that opportunity when we meet up on the 3rd, right after coming back on our return. Then in the same week, on the 5th, we have Susan Smith-Jones with us. We first met her last month talking about Olbus products. She was a real preppy gal, and she was as sharp as a tack. She was out in California, and she just is a veritable fountain of information. We're going to get her take on the issue of stress busters. I will tell you also of patients of mine who actually have her book, The Joy Factor, and think it's one of the finest books they've ever read with respect to your own personal health issues and how to put a program together. Then on the 10th, we just booked this the other day, so this is a fresh one. Rena Revivo is coming back. Now, Rena was with us once before. She is on the West Coast. Interesting story. She's in the cosmetic industry because she learned on how natural products, not chemicals, could be used for makeup and so on and so forth in her growing up years in the Middle East. It's a fascinating story. She is in the Middle East right now. She went there to her homeland for Christmas. She'll be back, literally returning on January 1st, and so we're going to have her here on the 10th talking more about the cosmetic realm using natural products. On the 12th, Stuart Reeves will be with us. He represents the company Epicor/Diamond V. You know all about it. It's the way to prevent colds and other diseases by using this product called Epicor that we, meaning myself and Arlene Brecker, first brought to you a number of years ago. On the 17th, Roland Thomas comes with us. He is going to be talking about bioengineered algae. Doesn't sound too delectable, does it? But he claims soon to be our most powerful food and medicine. And so we will be off on a new tangent with Roland on the 17th. Then on the 19th, Brian Starkey comes with us. First time aboard with us. He represents a company called Trace Mineral Research. We've heard peripherally about his product line. The company located in Utah gains all of its product line from the very historic Dead Sea. No, not the Dead Sea. The Great Salt Lake that's located in Utah. We've got a tentative guest schedule for the 24th. More about that when he finally gets inked, and I'll be sure to let you know with enough advance warning. So there you have it. Let's do this because I think it may take us the full allotment of time to get through these first 6 months of the year 2010. Let's take a short break. And when we return, get that calendar ready, get a pencil, piece of paper, get ready to write. If you have a mind to take notes, I'm going to walk you through the first 6 months of AM Impact on your health with my calendar. You can fill yours in as we move.
This is Dennis J. Courtney, MD. Have you become confused about how best to manage your health? It's no wonder. It seems that every time you turn on the television or radio, another expert has yet another suggestion for you to follow that seems to be reasonable enough, but no matter how dutifully you follow the instruction, it just doesn't quite produce the results that you are looking for. If this confusion sounds familiar to you, give us a call at the Center for Complementary Health, where we'll make some sense of the confusion based on a blending of traditional and alternative medicine that we've been perfecting over the last 7 years. We offer metabolic nutrition testing, immune system repair, natural hormone replacement therapy, chelation therapy, cutting-edge allergy correction, and a host of other safe and effective alternative therapies.
Dennis J. Courtney, MD, is located at 3075 Washington Road in McMurray. Phone 724-942-3002.
Have you been to the doctor lately? Was fatigue top of your complaint list? Even if your doctor asks you what you eat, the recommended 5 servings of fruits and vegetables a day is a dream in your busy schedule. What if you learned of a product 5 years in the formulation that delivers 5 servings of fruits and minerals in just 1 ounce? That's right, it's Fruit of the Spirit. The blessings of Fruit of the Spirit are now formulated into a delicious whole fruit puree product rich in antioxidants and minerals. Your health is more than just a test result. It's a balance of physical, spiritual, and emotional factors. You work regularly to strengthen your faith. Let Fruit of the Spirit help cover your nutritional needs in a convenient and cost-effective ounce a day. Call 1-800-442-3793 for a special promotional offer. Fruit of the Spirit, a blessing for your good health. Fruit of the Spirit, 5 servings of fruits and minerals with no added sugars. That's 1-800-442-3793 for your good health. Call them now, 1-800-442-3793.
Hey, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back once again to AM Impact on Your Health here on a Wednesday version of the show as we take you on out of the year 2010 with today's show and Friday, really taking you right up to the gong on Friday, which is New Year's Eve day. As I said, this is the common time for all of the mass media out there to give you a year in review of no matter what perspective that they come to you with. Our perspective has always been health, a discussion of health, and bringing experts to you who have their own twist and their own nuance for how you can better your health. And I certainly enjoy bringing you these guests, and as I've always done in the past, I'll continue to do it as time marches on. Today we're going to spend time on the first 6 months of 2010, literally walking through my calendar. Hope you're set with yours, where you can literally scratch down the names of those individuals and know what the overall schedule was for 2010. And you can use that as your guide to head to the website at dennisjcourtney.com or amimpact.com, get you to the same place. And by clicking on the archives icon on the opening page, you literally click onto the date, and the show that we're discussing right now will be available to you in its entirety. So we turn to the month of January 2010, and boy, as I looked at this page, I had a little bit of nostalgia, a little bit of remorse. Actually, in January of 2010, as I now take a look at it, and I remember this quite vividly, it's virtually absent of any guests. And the reason why that is so is that for the entire month, I really didn't do a live show. I didn't do a live show in January until the 29th of January. And of course, the reason for this, as those of you who followed me for quite a while would know, is that, 2009 was not a great health year for me. I had plenty of health issues, some rather serious, I might add. And the culmination of this occurred in the month of December of 2009, when I ultimately had gallbladder surgery. And my recuperation from this surgery, I literally didn't have the energy to make it to the airways for the month of January. Now, I'm not going to really retrace the entire saga of my health issues for the year 2009. They have come out in dribbles as time moved on in that year, and they'll continue to come out in dribbles. But I guess I should make a couple of emphatic statements that I feel very strongly about with respect to the gallbladder issue and using my own personal health history as the backdrop for it. Many times on this show and out in public, never ceases to amaze me when I run into people who want to talk about alternative issues. And a question that just keeps coming up on this show while I do it, and outside the show while I'm walking around the streets, is do you know, they asked me, and you can probably remember where this was going, do you know something about a gallbladder flush? And the question just keeps coming at me over and over and over again. People think, well, I might have those gallstones that people get plagued with, and this is the way they think. I'd like to take care of them on my own, because I certainly wouldn't want to have a gallbladder surgery. And so what I'd like to do, I've heard about this gallbladder flush. Can you help me and tell me what the gallbladder flush is? And to their amazement, many times, my response has always been the same. And it is that, yes, I'm very much aware of something called a gallbladder flush. However, I am not going to tell you what the gallbladder flush is. And the reason I'm not going to tell you is that depending on the size of those stones, you may be one of these folks that have a stone large enough that if you provoke a contraction of the gallbladder to squeeze those stones out, which is what the gallbladder flush does, and you happen to have a stone too large to go through the duct, then literally you will have created a surgical emergency for yourself by virtue of utilizing the gallbladder flush to remove your gallbladder of stones. And so I apologize, and I have always told them, as long as I've been doing this show, and as many times it's come up in public, that there's plenty of ways you can get that gallbladder flush. You can go ahead and Google it up on the internet, and I'm sure you'll find it. I just personally don't want to be the individual to tell you what the gallbladder flush is. Now, that was the mantra. That was the way I answered the question on air and off air. And lo and behold, what I didn't know is that I was the poster child for the person that should never do a gallbladder flush, because I would have created my own surgical emergency, which I ultimately did do. However, it wasn't by virtue of a flush, it was just by virtue of dietary issues alone. So those who are concerned about their gallbladder should do this. By the way, if you're a patient of mine, you already know it gets done. And if you're not one yet, you should become one, because when we do your workups here at the office, everybody gets a sonogram of the gallbladder, and in so doing, you'll be able to learn about the size, the quantity, the absence, or the presence of gallstones in that gallbladder, and you will know your status. If you have no stones, or if you have very small stones, and by the way, it's pretty easy to tell on a sonogram of the gallbladder whether you do, then it would be safe for you to do a gallbladder flush. However, if you had sufficiently large enough stones, it would be very much not in your best medical interest to do so. That's how I start my show today, looking at January, seeing there were nothing but repeat shows, one after another, after another, after another, all the way to the 29th, and I have a little note in my book says, "Open phones, I'm back again." That was on the 29th of January, and we pretty much held true ever since. So January, devoid of guests, devoid of me, until the 29th, and so we now turn the page and move to the month of February, where things really began to pick up. We started out in the first week of February, and those of you marking down dates, I'm going to give you dates so that you can be able to jot down the name and the date, and then you can go to the archives and be able to find the shows. On the 3rd of February and the 5th of February, we did a part 1 and part 2 with a Dr. David Potts, who represented a company that I felt very strongly about, still do, by the way, known as Ciara. These chips, they were holographic chips, remember? And they were starting out, basically, the chip that caught my attention was the one that treated pain, acute or chronic pain. And so when I was in speaking engagements, I would take a bunch of these chips, and I would chip you. That's what I said. I put the chip on directly over the pain site and watch the response of patients literally within moments, a moment, a minute, a couple of minutes, saw these pain, whatever was causing the pain wasn't affected. It was just the pain impulses themselves. And so Ciara is a company that we still are receiving our chips from. I have them in the office. I'll be happy to chip you if you come on in and have a pain problem. If it turns out to be a resolution for your particular pain issue, you may have another option in your armamentarium to take care of either acute or chronic pain problems, even though the cause is always something that needs to be detected. But once the cause is known, you need a modality in order to take care of it. And the Ciara chip, which we introduced back in February of 2010, for many has turned out to be that way of managing their pain problem. Okay. Guess what? We jump now to February 12th, when I don't believe it's the first time. In fact, I know doggone well it's not the first time, but it's certainly one of the many times that Cass Ingram came to us in the months of 2010. That particular episode with Dr. Cass Ingram, an actual medical doctor, by the way. The mantra was, I thought, a catchy title. "There's a fungus among us" was the name of the show and the entitlement of the show, and it was the exposure once again to the use of oregano in all of its various forms, now teamed up with a additional product, also coming from the wild, also organic, called chagra. The first time I had heard about it, this is just a fungus that literally grows at the base of birch trees in the Canadian wilderness and serves a symbiotic relation, protects the tree. Once a tree has a ring of that stuff around its base, It literally can't be assaulted by any natural pathogens that occur in the forest, and literally can take trees out of there by virtue of disease. Not this chagra, combined with the other natural forces that are in the forest, turns out to be very protective. And so there's where we found out that chagra would be another product entry by this company called North American Herb and Spice, and that's the company that pretty much is the signature company line for all oregano products. We carry oregano products here. We usually have to say stocked up whenever Cass Ingram comes on our show, and we carry the professional line, which the easy way to remember the professional line is it's double strength. Whatever you can get on the retail side, any other place, the professional line is a double strength product, and we'll let it go with that. Cass Ingram, now coming to us in February 12th of 2010. And by the way, it came right back a few days later on the 17th, and we did part 2 of the, well, I labeled it here oregano because, after all, he is the king of oregano and the king of a whole bunch of natural ways to correct microbial infections, which I think is safely said one of his best edges, and he's passed it on in all of his various books and all the radio shows he's done with us. So Cass Ingram, a big guest of ours, on the 12th and 17th of the month. Later on that month, on the 24th, we brought a guest to you, one that I continually see in my office. His name is Alan Ridgway, and the discussion was one about advanced diabetic solutions. And really, his product line remains in my office to this very day. He is the gentleman we call whenever we have a diabetic patient. We automatically contact Alan Ridgway because orthopedically manufactured shoes with your own particular size in mind, taken from a mold of your foot, is what Mr. Ridgway actually brings as a service to all of my diabetic patients. And in the case of the diabetic, turns out that their insurance completely covers these shoes. They are still displayed on a shoe rack in my office, where anyone coming in figures, what am I in, a shoe store? And then we finally explain, no, these are for diabetics. They're very expensive shoes. To purchase a pair of these, well above $250, $300. But in the case of diabetics who are really appreciative that Mr. Ridgway comes here, the discussion of these shoes and other issues surrounding the diabetic were first brought to you on February 24th, and that pretty much is the way that February ends with those guests mentioned. We turn now to the month of April. Now, in the month of April, let's see here. Oh, yes. Our good friend Raymond Francis, who had been on our show multiple times in 2009 also. That's the first time we actually met him. Author of a book, Never Be Sick Again, turned out, launched a discussion with us about a second book that he wrote. Was very interested in the book because, as you well know, here in my office, we see a number of cancer patients. We see and do treat a number of cancer patients who prefer to pursue a non-toxic approach, not really having any chemotherapy or radiotherapy in at least their own health issue. They come to me and say, look, I may have the surgery. By the way, some say that they won't even have the surgery. Sometimes I actually think it's a better idea to have that surgery than not, but it's their call. But for sure, they say, I'm not having chemotherapy and I'm not having radiation therapy. Well, Raymond Francis came to our show on the 3rd of March. He returned on the 5th of March, 2 days later. We did part 1 and part 2 of a show entitled Cancer Therapy, his new book. And so his new book and his old book, which, by the way, here comes your first phone number, an 800 number, which I'm sure you're still able to get the number to be able to order his first book called Never Be Sick Again, and his second book entitled The Treatment of Cancer, 1-800-250-3063. That's 1-800-250-3063. The shows to re-listen to, if you have a mind to, are in the 3rd and the 5th of March. Just as a recap, I think I'll summarize his approach to the treatment of cancer as follows. Number one, he's always, and he always does talk about nutrition. He talks about organic nutrition, lack of any chemicals in the food supply at all, no matter what it is that you are eating. Number two, detoxification, which gets rid of all sorts of toxic agents, especially heavy metals. And number three, alkalinization. That was the third component that he threw in there. And then after having a discussion with him, I'm talking about getting professional help, which he said, you really do need to do this, folks. Don't take cancer on your own. Don't take it and try to treat it on your own. You do need professional help. But he then went into quite a discussion about locating that professional help. I'm mentioning that now because we absolutely fulfill that role for many a patient here in the Western Pennsylvania area to be able to provide the staple item, which is very high dose vitamin C infusion, as he absolutely agreed was necessary in order to combat cancer. Okay, so that was March 3rd and March 5th. Now, on March 8th, and every so often I end up doing a show on it anymore, but on March 8th, I began to talk about, for the first time in 2010, ECP. I continue to talk about it every single time a patient visits me in my office because the cardiovascular side of the equation is so omnipresent. I mean, everybody has cardiovascular issues as we age. It's just the way it goes. I often tell these patients of mine that, look, when we finally do leave this good earth, and we are going to leave it, we are going to leave it by one of two causes only. The number one way that we leave is through a cardiovascular event. And the number two way that we leave is through cancer. And if you combine those two, and those two only, you're really looking at greater than 90% of the deaths each and every year, country by country, worldwide, are caused by two things, and two things only. And so with the cardiovascular side of the equation in mind, the discussion of ECP came up first in 2010 in February 8th. I asked you to jot that show down to listen to it and get those benefits once again. It is the only way I know of to be able to create brand spanking new blood vessels through the use of an FDA-approved and insurance-covered protocol known as ECP. ECP, of course, stands for External Counterpulsation, the name of the procedure that is what we offer here, and have been doing so for it's about 7 years now, 7 or 8 years total. We really enjoy the fact that we're one of the few places where you can actually get this procedure done. Of course, all patients who are going to be receiving it end up seeing our cardiologist, who comes to my office every other week. His name is Dr. Oliver Caminos. You have met him on these airways, and you will meet him again. But ECP is something that I actually feel very strongly about. He does also. He's actually the cardiologist that refers most every one of our patients onto the ECP machine for the protocol, consisting of 35 treatments, 1 hour a day, 5 days a week for 7 weeks. They're not playing around. Okay, we move on in the month of March. I see here that the next guest up, Ed Condra. Now, Ed comes to town quite a bit. A personal friend of mine and colleague, originally hailing from Western Pennsylvania, had his office in Mount Lebanon. He's an ophthalmologist, folks, and he's a very different ophthalmologist. And he's relocated now, as you well know. He's located out in Phoenix, Arizona, and literally moves around the country to offer treatment seminars. Pittsburgh, high on the list think last year, total in 2010, there were 4 seminars that he held here, actually treating eye conditions in a very unique way. I refer you to the show of March 15th to learn more about it, as well as other shows that will come up, because each and every time he comes to town, we usually bring him on the show in advance to allow you to at least be reminded that he's coming to town, to take him up on his offer to treat your particular eye condition. That was on the 15th of March. Then on the 17th of March, a gentleman who I had not met before, his name was Christopher Moore. He had a Pittsburgh connection. He was a Penn State graduate for undergrad, and then he went for graduate work at the University of Pittsburgh. Ended up taking one of our fine women back with him, wherever it was that I was talking to him. His wife, a Pittsburgher, comes to Pittsburgh a lot, has a lot of family in Pittsburgh. Anyway, Christopher Moore came to our airways discussing what he referred to as 4 advances that could end heart disease. Now, when I get a preliminary buzz line, a byline about a show, anything that talks about cardiovascular disease always gets my additional attention. And so I was anxiously awaiting his arrival to talk about what those 4 things may be. Now, I was a little cloudy on what the 4 things were the other day as I started to go through this. So I actually went back to the show to find out, and I listened to the entire show to find out what the 4 things were. I can now tell you, in a way that would reduce this to just a few moments worth of time, that the 4 things that he felt were advances that could end heart disease. Here they were. Number 1, eliminating trans fatty acids. Okay, I was with them on that. Number 2, the ending of the low-fat diet craze. And as I listened to the show, I remember that epoch and that era where low-fat was in. Every time you turned around the grocery store, there was a low-fat product, this, low-fat product, that. And as it turns out, whenever you read that no-fat label, especially in a processed foods, which are not really good anyway, but especially in them, you're really looking at a product that has been altered, not to the better, but has been altered for the worse, always including additional carbohydrate, making them have more calorie content. And so ending of the low-fat diet craze, which I think has ended. You don't nearly see it as much anymore. He felt was the number 2, the second advance that could end heart disease. Number 3, he thought, was the fact that the government changed that pyramid. And you know, it used to be a pyramid. It was all contorted. It was completely mislabeled. The grains were on the bottom. The fats were on the top. Everything in the middle was jumbled up. Now, the word pyramid doesn't do it justice, because it is not a pyramid. It's some polygonal figure. It's more accurate and more appropriate with respect to how the diet should go. But the fact that the new pyramid was even available, he felt was a major advancement. And the 4th one was the increased awareness that appeared to be circulating throughout the public on omega-3 fatty acids. Those were the 4 things. And I went back and listened to the show so I could tell them to you. If you want to listen to the show in its entirety, March 17th is the date to go to. Now, let's see. Oh, by the time the end of the month rolled around, we met a very good friend. And the good friend turned out to come back 3 different times. His name was Dr. Eric Shapira. His discussion was centering on a book that he had written, literally about elder care. And he brought a topic to us that had never been brought to us before on making decisions within the family about the elderly parent that is moving toward the end of life, and decisions that have to be made with regard to legal aspects of dying, the medical aspects of dying, advance directives, the entire thing, which, by the way, the death isn't just something, the thing that we thought was a dead issue, and I say that with all due respect and reverence. is being resurrected again in the Obamacare saga with those death panels. Didn't you hear the term death panels a bunch of times this past week? Because they're out and about, once again, by the way. But Dr. Eric Shapiro came with us, and I'm trying to give you a way that, looking for the website, can't really find it to be able to give it to you right now. The dates that Dr. Shapiro was with us in the month of March were the 22nd and the 29th. We did a part 1 and a part 2 with respect to elder care issues, and I turn you to those dates should you be having that issue now arisen in your family, trying to make decisions about what needs to be done. I thought we covered in a very fine fashion what the elements that need to be considered are, and done in a way that was very tasteful, very accurate, and very insightful from Dr. Eric Shapiro. Okay, coming to the end of the month of March, and we're going to take a break right after it and give you all a chance to rest a bit. The last day of March, March 31st, ended up starting a saga which I thought was really well received by you, and the saga was on clot busting. Clot busting is, by the way, a very important part of the workups and the therapeutic approaches we take to cardiovascular disease, because it is the final event that occurs in the entire cardiovascular milieu. That's a fancy word, but deposition of plaque, there's bleeding around the plaque, clots begin to form, and ultimately clots can break off, and if they do break off, they usually go from a larger vessel to a smaller vessel, abruptly occluded, and if that happens to be in the heart, that's called a heart attack. If it happens to be in the brain, that's called a stroke. If it happens to be in any other organ other than those two, it's just called an infarct, and by the way, they can occur in all the other organs to boot, but those two first mentioned organs are extremely important, as you would understand. Anyway, clot busting, as it turns out. There is no conventional therapy that clot busts. There are conventional therapies that are meant to inhibit clots from forming, but once formed, there are no mild conventional clot busters. We took the time starting on the 31st of March and actually finished up in the month of April. I'll give you the other two dates, where a well-rounded discussion occurred, because you were interested, you called up, you wanted to know more about it, you were interested in knowing all of the potential supplement, non-pharmaceutical approaches to clot busting that were available, and we sure did talk about them. Began on the 31st of March. I've got it labeled here in my calendar as a platinum show, which that means I fully recommend that you dial it up and listen to it. And when we come back after this short break, we'll give you the dates of the Part 2 and Part 3 of the Clot Buster series. There were 3 of them, as well as many of the other guests that appeared with us. In 2010, we're up to the month of April right now, and we'll proceed onward when we return. Be back in just a moment.
Want to help your family eat healthier? Instead of learning to disguise tofu in wondrous ways, how about some real nutritional power? If your family has the typical American palate for fries, pizza, and burgers, giving your family the blessing of good nutrition is a struggle. Fruit of the Spirit is the answer for your family's nutritional needs. Fruit of the Spirit is an all-natural, whole fruit puree made from fresh fruits native to the Holy Land with alkalizing minerals. Fruit of the Spirit was 5 years in the formulation, the work of a team of top nutritional experts with independent science to confirm its antioxidant power. 1 ounce a day provides the equivalent of 5 servings of fruits and minerals. Fruit of the Spirit is convenient, affordable, and delicious. Even your picky family will sing the praises of Fruit of the Spirit. Give your loved ones a blessing of good nutrition. Call 1-800-442-3793 for a special promotional offer. Fruit of the Spirit, a blessing for your good health. That's 1-800-442-3793. Call them now, 1-800-442-3793.
This is Dennis J. Courtney, MD. Have you become confused about how best to manage your health? It's no wonder. It seems that every time you turn on the television or radio, another expert has yet another suggestion for you to follow that seems to be reasonable enough, but no matter how dutifully you follow the instruction, it just doesn't quite produce the results that you were looking for. If this confusion sounds familiar to you, give us a call at the Center for Complementary Health, where we'll make some sense of the confusion based on a blending of traditional and alternative medicine that we've been perfecting over the last 7 years. We offer metabolic nutrition testing, immune system repair, natural hormone replacement therapy, chelation therapy, cutting-edge allergy correction, and a host of other safe and effective alternative therapies.
Dennis J. Courtney, M.D., is located at 3075 Washington Road in McMurray. Phone 724-942-3002.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to AIM Impact on Your Health here on this Get 'em Up out of town version. Oh, no, not really, sort of semi. Get 'em Up out of town for the year version of the show, where we're going down memory lane and discussing the year in review, 2010. We're taking the first 6 months of 2010 today, and we'll follow up with the last 6 months of 2010 on New Year's Eve Day, which will be our Friday show. We're up to the month of April now, allowing you to jot down. I hope you have a calendar nearby. You're able to sort of fill in that calendar, knowing which shows you'd like to hear, who it would be that you're listening to when you hear them, and some salient points that I can recall from having that guest on our show the first time through. Now, here in the month of April of 2010, I look to see a really, I believe, just a brilliant guest that I had the opportunity of bringing to you on the 7th of April. His name is Dr. Thomas Levy. At the time we did our show, Dr. Levy literally was talking to us from the country of Colombia, which is where he moved to, literally to avoid medical persecution as a cardiologist. And the last time I remembered his name was in conjunction with Dr. Hal Huggins. He and Dr. Hal teamed up a number of years earlier out in Colorado Springs, Colorado, literally working together with Hal, nailing down the dental issues with respect to all forms of disease. And it was because of that relationship, I think, got revealed during the show. And his meeting of Dr. Huggins, that Thomas Levy literally branched away and moved away from conventional therapies and started to use his brilliance for other reasons, mostly now in the alternative realm. Anyway, when Dr. Thomas Levy was with us on the 7th of April, he was talking about a product that he developed, which was a form of vitamin C, Lipo-C actually, where he felt, and he is so correct in doing so, that vitamin C, being so poorly absorbed, needs to be enhanced to be better absorbed, fully absorbed, and it's that famous chemical possibility of taking what normally is a water-soluble product, which vitamin C is, and making it fat-soluble. When you do that, you're able to enhance the absorption somewhere near from a little as 10% in its water-soluble state to nearly 100% absorption in its fat-soluble state. So the issue of vitamin C, which I commend, I've been aware of, you certainly know, if you listen to this show at all, that there's two aspects of vitamin C that I absolutely think that the consumer needs to be aware of. One, the source of that vitamin C, and that it must be, I say it must be non-corn derived, so that no genetically modified product enters your house. And then the second point is that it should be, doesn't have to be, but it should be fat soluble, in which case if it's only water soluble, and that's fine, you'll just have to make sure you space out your daily ingestion of vitamin C so as not to overload the abdominal lumen and the abdominal mucosa with a level of vitamin C it can't tolerate, because when you do so, you end up having this famous bowel tolerance issue come to fore, and that's a fancy word for frank diarrhea, which is what you'll experience should you attempt to do otherwise. Okay, so the month moved on. I can now give you those other dates. By the way, remember I said when I talked about the March 31st show on Clotbusters, we finally had 3 full shows on Clotbusters. We had them, by the way, because you demanded them. I mean, you did not say that, but because of your phone calls, and they kept coming in, you were interested in the topic. To fully cover the topic, we took 3 different shows, the 31st of March, and now here, 2 different shows in April, one on the 9th and the other one on the 14th, and that winds up completing the trilogy on clot busting. So those of you who have real issues with wanting to know more about clot busting, I refer you to the archives of my website at either DennisJCourtney.com or AMImpact.com to get the full shows that you can listen to. Okay, so the month clicked away. We got to the 12th, by the way, and it was our first introduction to an interesting gentleman. His name was Rick Hill. It is Rick Hill. He was a cancer survivor diagnosed with testicular cancer, which, although it doesn't have a bad profile, no, pretty good profile, as a matter of fact, with conventional medical approaches, in that day had very poor prognosis. Anyway, Mr. Rick Hill came to us with that story of his testicular cancer, but with a twist. And he felt that purification of the air and water and things like this were the best ways for the individual to take control of these toxic agents that he felt were very much involved with his own cancer situation. And that introduced us to a company. The company was called Healthy Perceptions, where we talked about these air purification systems. I have one in my office. They were nice enough to send me one. When you walk in my office, you know that it's clean in here because it just gives off a certain aroma. It's like a low-level ozone smell, yet it's not ozone. And we bring his name to your attention should you want to go back and listen to the show that we first did with him on the 12th. I can tell you that if you want more information on the products that he brought to us, there's 2 ways to do it. One, you can go to the website entitled healthyperceptions.com, or you can call Healthy Perceptions, and the number to do that is 888-340-0247. That is 888-340-0247. Moving along, in that month of April, we got to the sort of the end of the month when we made a new acquaintance, because we had Rick Hill back with us. By the way, he was back on the 26th, so we did 2 shows with Rick, 12th and the 26th of April. Then on the 28th, we met a new fella. He's since been, I think, a total of 4 times now on the show. But our first meeting with Mr. Mark Underwood was back on the 28th of April. The topic at the time was the dementia epidemic with baby boomers. The dementia epidemic, of course, referring to memory loss issues and Alzheimer's and the like, where we were first introduced to Mr. Mark Underwood's offering that he learned from and derived from jellyfish called Prevagen. We carry that product in the office today. It is in its professional strength line. We carry that professional strength line, and it is a way by using a calcium binding protein that we find in jellyfish to help, number one, prevent the further development of memory loss. And what was interesting with Mr. Mark Underwood was the possibility of being able to reverse the issue of memory loss. So Mark Underwood, I saluted him then. We brought him back 3 more times, 2 or 3 at least in the year 2010, and I'll give you those dates as we come across them. The product called Prevagen is one that I would recommend to anybody, and as I say, we do carry it in the office. All right, moving to the month of May. Here we are in May, and we start out with May with a very interesting guest. It was one of my most unusual shows I'd ever done, but it turned out the topic was fascinating. The gentleman was named Phil Blizzard. It's either Phil Blizzard or Phil Blizzard. I don't know how you want to pronounce it. I'll call it Blizzard. And the topic was something called Thundershirt. Now, this was an interesting little thing that we did here with him, because this turns out to be a compression garment that you're supposed to put on dogs to quit them from barking for any reason, any fearful reason. The reason it was called Thundershirt is because Phil noticed that in his own case, his dog, every time there was a storm with thunder involved, this dog went through emotional trauma. And I know this is a common thing seen by most animal owners, especially dog owners, and especially during storms. Well, as it turned out, you put the thunder shirt on the animal, and I was watching the video, and immediately, I mean within a second, the dog felt comfortable, I think. And at least the barking stopped. The animal was no longer going through emotional stress. And as many times as I saw it used on different animals in the video that's available, I felt that it warranted bringing him to you. I brought him to you. I don't know if any of you took him up on his offer or not, but I'm sure many of you animal lovers out there may still want to do that. The product is called Thundershirt. I don't have a website for it. I would strongly recommend those who have an interest to go back to the show of May the 3rd that we did, the one and only time show with Phil Blizzard on Thundershirts, his own invention for dogs, and hopefully you'll be able to tell me what the website is. I know there was a website. The website had a whole bunch of neat little videos on it. I just didn't write it down. I don't have it here right now. Moving right along, the month of May continued. On the 10th of May, it was a local show done by a local establishment called Home Instead Senior Care. Yeah, Home Instead Senior Care, whereby an individual, an elderly individual, one who needs to get around and do things, can't really do so, and there's a person that can come to the home and assist in this on a part-time basis. I mean, it could be a person that literally showed up once a day between the hours of 11 and 12, making families feel as though that they can go about their business while still making certain that their loved one was being adequately cared for, especially at times when the care was really needed to be delivered, and then could move on and move to the next place, not staying there, 8 hours a day, 7 days a week. So the name of the company, Home Instead Senior Care, that you'll find listed in a local phone book. I do not have their contact information written here. I see, by the way, Mark Underwood returned. So the second Prevision show that we did was in May, on May 12th. You probably want to mark that down in your calendar. And lo and behold, on the 17th, who comes aboard with us? Other than one Deborah Ray. It only happens a couple of times a year. I'm always so tickled when she does come to us. She did on May 17th. And at that time, she talked about her new book she had written in collaboration with two physicians, one Dr. Young and the other Dr. Reyes, which actually those two doctors have a clinic down in Tampa. And at the time, Deborah Ray was actually participating in seeing patients there at that clinic, helping them from her alternative perspective that only she possesses. And I mean, she is so good at it, as you well know. Anyway, that visit, which only became topped by a visit she made with us in December, which we'll talk about. That first visit of 2010 was back on May the 17th. On May 19th, interesting gentleman. He had been with us in previous years. He turned out to be Mr. Arkansas. I asked him about Bill. I asked him about, what's the next one? Is it Ginger? I don't remember now. Anyway, Todd Scarborough was our guest, talking about shedding weight. He's always interested in weight and how he looks, because he continues, even well into his 30s now, to be a participant in Mr. Arkansas contests. And I really don't know. One was coming up at the time we spoke to him. I don't know how that turned out, but nonetheless, Todd Scarborough, interesting guy. Really enjoyed having him on the show. Now, on the 24th of the month, I put a little star. I circled it because what I did launch on that day, and I continue to call it a platinum show, was the fact that a new blood test was available. I had always said, up to that point, there are 8 blood tests that are mandatory whenever you're being worked up for your cardiovascular status. And that of the 8 blood tests that should be ordered, your doctor is only ever going to order one of them and ignore the other 7. Well, I had to change the battle cry, and I had to change the mantra when it came to the 24th of May, because it was then that I finally had to launch that there were now 9 tests, not 8. There were now 9 tests that should be done and run in order to have the sufficient laboratory analysis concluded to evaluate you with respect to your cardiovascular risk. The 9th test, which we have since talked about many times and have just recently labeled as part of the cholesterol conundrum, if you can remember the show for this month, was a brand new test entitled LDL particle size. And as it turns out, particle size is extremely important when it comes to the issue of learning about what risk factors may be. Now look, it does end with the month of May. I lag behind just a bit, wanted to include June. I'll pick up with it where we leave off. I'll see you on Friday, which is New Year's Eve day, where we'll finish off the rest of the year in review. Until then, this is Dr. Dennis Courtney saying so long for AM Impact on Your Health.
Your Health, sponsored by Dennis J. Courtney, MD, Director of the Courtney Medical Group, located at 3075 Washington Road in McMurray.